Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for allowing me to visit with some old friends. I'm first to admit that I miss seeing a lot of the GARS people at Tech Fest and at the Ham Fest. I've always enjoyed the popcorn and miss all of that. And hopefully we're going to get back on track real soon. As mentioned earlier, I was licensed in 1960. So this makes 61 years in the hobby. But I really did not start DXing or the interest in DXing until 1977. And I recall my first contact, which was a gentleman by the name of Roman Gonzalez, HI8 XRG, who I actually met after our contact in Puerto Rico. I was there, both of us were there on business, and we had an eyeball QSL. So a lot of the people that I have had contacts with on the air, I've actually met. That was one of the advantages of the job I had. Well, I call this the art of QSLing, or how I learned the hard way. And learning the hard way means you mess up a lot. And hopefully this will help a little bit. We're going to go from the very beginning up until more recent times. So the old way, I call it the old way of mailing a QSL card, is really not the old way. A lot of us still do it. I do it. There are lots of stations that I contact where I want the QSL card. Excuse me. Okay. To spare the innocent, this is one of my old cards, and it's a very poor design. Why is it a poor design? Not by the artwork that was done, but this was my advanced class call. I didn't change my call from the advanced class call to my extra class because I didn't care for the calls they were issuing. So in 1996, when the vanity came in, I was able to capture N4FN, which of course are my initials reversed. But what makes this a poor design? The poor design is you see my call sign on the front. There's nothing on the back that talks about the call sign. So if this goes to a busy QSL manager, they have to flip the card. And so a card like this is rather poor. This is a more current card. You can tell that I have this thing about eagles because all of my cards have eagles on them. And I now use labels, and it gives all the information on the back for anyone, including the Maidenhead locator or grid square and the contact information, etc. So this is a much better design because my call sign's on the front and location, and people like that. Not all QSL cards follow the standard format. This is a QSL acknowledgement from my friend Gary Henson, ZL2IFB, who has, you'll hear more about him later on, but he's written a definitive book on FT8. And this was the QSL card that he sent me. For those of you who have been around a long time, maybe like, I don't know, Joel Levine, that's possible. This is a penny postcard. And believe me, folks, I remember penny postcards for a Spark Gap QSL card And it was something I was able to obtain in a collection. Commonly referred to as international reply coupons or monopoly money. When they were heavily in use, IRCs were very rarely redeemed. They are still legal. The United States Post Office no longer issues them. However, because they are members of the UPU, Universal Postal Union, they have to redeem them. The problem is, if you go to the post office, you have to find somebody who knows what the heck they are. And the last time I redeemed about a dozen, I went to the post office and the fellow looked at it and said, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen one of these things in years. Only the ham radio guys use these things." And I said, "Guilty." And he redeemed them. The original ones like this, these three, these two are valid. These two are not valid. What makes them not valid? It has to have a postmark or cancellation from the issuing entity. And here we have them. Back when they were 11 cents. When you had this type of IRC, it was surface mail. Now everything goes by airmail. So if you wanted the reply back by airmail, you had to send 2 of these. A lot of stations really don't want them because they're too hard to redeem. This is not, ladies and gentlemen, how to send a request for a QSL card. Again, the innocent have been redacted, and you'll see that has been removed. This is a mess. Please don't ever send a card like this. This is something that I used to use as a QSL manager, and I've managed a number of expeditions and individual stations. And I used to put that in if they had some issues. The one that I hated to put in was not in the log. That was not something I liked doing. And frankly, most times I would research several days around the time because people were notorious not getting the correct date. This is my last written log after I went to the digital format. And if you'll notice here at the end, this is 1997, VK0IR. Those of you who have been DXing for some time will recognize VK0IR as Herd Island, one of the most god-awful places next to Bouvet to go. Well, the interesting thing about this expedition was there were 2 fellows from Atlanta who were on that expedition. One of them you probably know is Bob Alfin, K4UEE. The other one had a call sign of Whiskey 8 Fox Mike Golf. Oh, well, you wouldn't know him, but you probably know him now as Whiskey 3 Whiskey Lima, West Lamboli. These 2 gents were on that expedition. And on the, I'll call it the old style logbooks, I don't use this anymore. Obviously you use the date, the frequency, the mode, power output, the time. This is really critical, and you'll see that later on. Signal report. And if it went via a manager, via EA2JG, meant that's who it went to. Where I have a check mark means I sent the card, but never got a response. Here, I sent the card and got the responses. So that was my last log sheet. Okay, let's take a look at logging programs. There are many Windows logging programs. I have them here in alphabetical problem, and there are probably some others that are very popular. N4FN AC log is very popular. N1MM logger is primarily for the contester. I use Ham Radio Deluxe and have been using it for many years. My foray into electronic logging was with a program called DXBase. DXBase was a great program written by two Atlanta hams, Dean Fredrickson, W8ZF, and Jack Lennox, AA4LU. Jack's not active on the air. Dean has recently come back in as a member of the DX Club. They sold the package because it got too much for them to handle to someone else, and it just kind of fell by the wayside. There are Mac logging programs. Again, this is no means to be all of the programs. And for the Linux fans, there are programs. Okay. Arl Outgoing Qsl Service. You can get information. It covers it in detail. It is open only to ARRL members. You can send only DX stations. Don't send a US card, except if you have a W1AW Centennial, or if you are sending it to a USA manager. Those are the two exceptions. Not all countries participate. A lot of them don't even have incoming bureaus, and cost is by the pound or the ounce, and cards must be sorted. And there is a listing in the order in which they're sorted, because if you can remember the old post office where they had little pigeonhole things, they just sit and they flip them in there. So the cost is $2 for 10 or less cards, $3 for 11 to 20 cards. Over 21, it's 75 cents per ounce. So if you have 1.5 pounds, which is 225 cards, it's 18 bucks. And you have to sort by the parent prefix. Now, a good example is England, because they have now 3 prefixes. They use G, and then M, and then 2. Those are the official prefixes for England, but you sort them all as if they were G. I don't recommend this if you're in a hurry to get cards, because it can take a year or more. And my record was about a year ago, I got a card in, and it was from a station that was USSR, way before it split. And I said, you know, I don't remember this contact. And I looked at the date. It was 14 years old. It had probably fallen in the crack somewhere, because back then, when it was USSR, you sent your cards. If you opened up the old paper call book, which was like a telephone book, and you went to USSR, there was only one entry. It said Post Office Box 88, Moscow. And you sent your cards direct to Box 88, Moscow. They would then in turn send it out to the station in Russia, and then they'd send it back, and it would take quite a while. A lot of clubs will group the cards and ship them in bulk. And you can go to the website and you'll find a list of participating countries. There are quite a few that do not participate. This is not for everyone. Okay, if you are going to send your cards, you now complete this form. It used to be you simply sent in a label from your QST magazine or a photocopy of your membership card. They now have all of this information that's required, and you fill the form out, send it in with the appropriate funds, and that takes care of it. If you are sending a card via a manager, make sure it is quite plain. For example, this station is QSLing via N4FN, which happens to be the North Fulton Club, and I happen to be the QSL manager. So this Dutch station, PI4, Alpha Alpha Golf, is requesting it through NF4GA. When you are mailing an envelope, if you're mailing direct, do not put his or her call sign on the envelope. In many countries, the postal folks know that ham radio envelopes may contain currency, and they miraculously disappear. I have gotten a number of empty envelopes with just an envelope in. So something to keep in mind. Okay, the incoming bureau is a free benefit. Yeah, I know, hams hate free, but it is a free benefit. The fourth call area has 2 bureaus, and the usage is determined by the prefix in your call sign. If your call sign's not in the fourth area, you go to the league website and look for the proper bureau. If your prefix contains 1 letter, as mine does, N4, K4, W4, our bureau is the Carolina DX Association. And you can go and see who your sorter is. I have been working with the same guy for many years, and we've struck up quite a nice friendship and exchanged emails. If your call sign starts with a 2-letter prefix, you'll use the Sterling Park, and they're in Virginia. They do not utilize cash accounts. I meant to mention that before, but there are some of the other bureau sorters who like a cash account. Mine does not. He uses postage stamps. Okay, either a 5x7 or a 6x9 envelope is used, nothing larger. As I mentioned about cash accounts, those are indicated on the ARL website. And Paul, W4FC, has been my sorter and worked great with him. He's just great. Okay, suggestion, always use forever stamps. Frankly, I think that's all you can get now. And sometimes I'll throw a couple of bucks in because they need some help, and the sorters like that. Use the non-clasp type envelope. And the reason is the post office does not like the clasp envelopes because they jam up the machines, the sorting machines. So if I have them, before I seal the flap, I put some tape over the little clasp thing and don't use it. I always number my envelopes, you'll see in the next slide. And most sorters will let you know if you're sending the last envelope. And you should have your call in the upper left-hand corner because that's how the sorter keeps track of cards. And here is actually one of mine with the call sign, the forever, that's my favorite stamp, by the way, the Purple Heart stamp. And then I keep track of it myself. And I say 2 of 6, 3 of 6, whatever. I usually send them half a dozen at a time. Okay, do's. Keep enough envelopes on file. And please respond quickly to any bureau requests. Keep in mind that these are volunteers. Make sure your call sign's on any correspondence. If you don't want your cards, let them know, because they don't want to keep them forever. Don't expect speedy cards because it takes a long time, a minimum of a year or more. And don't send your outgoing cards to the Bureau. Don't send your portable, this is important. For example, if you are operating N4FN portable W1, my cards go to the 4 Bureau, not to the 1 Bureau. So don't send money credits, don't send envelopes larger than 6 by 9 because they require a postage surcharge. Okay, this is a service provided to all of us and does not require membership in the league. The outgoing does. So that being said, we should all be members of the league. I don't always agree with things that the league does, but they're our voice. And again, remember, the incoming Bureau is staffed by volunteers. Okay. One of the greatest things that the league has done for amateur radio all over was the creation of Logbook of the World. I think Logbook of the World is a misnomer because it truly is not a logbook. It is a repository for log records, and there is a difference. Why does it exist? What's it for? Why should I bother with it? Simple. LOTW makes confirming contacts easier. It's quicker and cheaper than sending traditional QSL cards, which I think is like $1.05 or $1.10 now for the stamp, plus the return postage, because in some countries, the return postage can be $3 or $4. And that quote comes from Gary Hinson. You're going to hear more about Gary, ZL2IFB and G4IFB, same person. If you still have paper log books, Fast Log Entry by DF3 Charlie Bravo is a program you can use as long as you can read your own scratching. I lucked out. I'm a terrible typist. I wish I had the skill when I paid attention in high school when it was required. But I was talking on the air one day with a gentleman, and he was saying to me that he had just transferred a friend's logbooks into digital format. I said, really? He said, yeah, I like doing that. I said, how much will you charge to do my logbooks? He said, how many do you have? And I told him. He said, oh, hell, he said, send it to me. He said, I'll be glad to do it. Well, I FedEx because that was the safest way of not losing logbooks. And about a week and a half later, I get a packet in the mail with some 3.5-inch floppy disks. And there is my logbook in ADIF format. And I was a happy camper because then I was able to move into electronic logging. Okay, as I mentioned to you before, LOTW, I'm just going to use the initials. It's a repository, and these are submitted by users from around the globe. It's no different than keeping a paper log. It's just a different way of doing things. When two stations make a contact and exchange QSL cards, they're sharing that information from the logbooks that's common to their contact. LOTW is double blind. That means you can't see someone else's log and they can't see your log. A paper logbook in your shack can only be seen by you. So this is what an LOTW contact confirmation looks like. When you see the date down here, where it says QSL, That's the date it was confirmed and put into LOTW. And all of this information is located from information you have supplied to LOTW. Essentially the same does not mean identical. LOTW allows leeway on some of the details, such as time and frequencies. The biggest thing is time. LOTW will tolerate 30 minutes either side of the actual time. If it's not within that parameter, you won't get a match. Club log is a little more stringent. It's 15 minutes, and we'll talk about club log later on. Okay, special situations. Any of these can be used. Portable maritime managers, de-expedition. You can set it up to process and match logs. Is it secure? You bet, because a submission has to be digitally signed using a certificate that the ARRL will furnish. How much does it cost? It's free. Oh no, it's free. Membership in the league is not required. However, you must be a league member to apply for the awards. You can send your logs and look at data anytime with no charges or fees. And yeah, it's free. When you apply for awards, you pay the appropriate application and QSL fees. No different than making a paper application. Although in most cases, using LOTW is a lot less costly. QSL cards. LOTW does not replace collecting QSL cards. LOTW does not produce paper cards. Other forms of QSLing are complementary, not alternatives to LOTW. Some like postcards. I do. I still, if I have something unusual, I like that card. I can guarantee you if P5, which is one that I need, North Korea, came on the air and I worked them, I darn near would drive that card to them to get the card back. So a lot of people like to hang them up. I keep them in an album. And some of you may have seen that at Hamfest at the DX Club. I have all 347 of my contacts in an album. And to me, it was just a lot of fun. Some are fancy, some are rather plain. Okay, LOTW uses a program called TQSL. Again, it's free to download and use. TQSL works with Windows, Mac, and Linux. How is LOTW different than EQSL or other online services? Because LOTW uses a private key and public key technology, users are verified and data uploaded, it's secure. It's constantly comparing uploaded data for matches. There are no paper cards printed that have the potential to be altered. And let me tell you, I've seen it tried. I've sat with Bill Barr, who's a checker, at a Hamfest when somebody tried to submit a 17-meter card, 1.8 for 160 meter, by simply putting a little dot between the 1 and the 8 and then sending it in as if for 160. That doesn't fly, which is why card checkers have, in order to check 160 meter, DXCCs have to have a DXCC at 160. Okay, what can you do with LOTW? You can track awards. it will show you how many QSLs you have pending that you haven't submitted. If you have any in process, it'll show you. It'll tell you how many you have, total and current. And there is a difference between total and current. Total includes entities or countries that are no longer in existence, okay? Total current is on the current scheme. Current scheme is 340, okay? Where you see the award underlined with a little asterisk, it means that that award has been issued. And that person, that's not mine. So you can use it to apply for awards, track credits. Look at, this is called a matrix, and you can change the matrix. I'll show you how to do that. You can track WAS credits, search QSOs and QSLs, and view details. You can look at the actual QSL details, sorry. Let me take a sip of water, give me a split sec. Thank you. Okay, TQSL is the software that you install at your location to securely upload logs to LOTW. It's free. You're gonna hear that word free a lot. It's also available for Mac and Linux, but Linux is supported by the Linux community. Okay, it uses a standard installer. When you go to install it, you bring that window will pop up, and it only accepts trusted files. Trusted files are created by TQSL, and it uses the certificate to sign the trusted file. Actually, we're up beyond 2.4. I couldn't get that to change. Authentication is only required when you are creating a new logbook of the world user account. But what do you hear about getting a postcard in the mail? Yeah, US operators will get a postcard mailed that will be sent to the listing you have in the FCC database. Non-US operators mail or email a copy of their operator permit and identification with the numbers redacted to the ARRL. The request is authenticated before sending the key. When you request a call sign certificate, you're requesting a key. As I said, it's only required when you create a new LOTW account. There are 3 different types of trusted files. A TQ5 is a request for a certificate. A TQ6 is what you receive as a response to a TQ5 request. And a TQ8 is a signed log file. That's what you upload to LOTW. So sending your log file is like sending your log in a lockbox. TQSL locks the box and sends it to LOTW. The call sign certificate encrypts the log file and it acts as the lock. When your file is received at LOTW, they use the same key to unlock the box that was used to lock it at your location. They have to match or the log cannot be opened. Now, how do you get a certificate? You bring up TQSL and then you say, request a new call sign certificate. When you apply for your first call sign, this shows in non-US hams on the flow chart, you're going to install TQSL, you'll run it, request a call sign certificate, wait for the postcard, enter the validation code, and then load the certificate, etc. Then you'll define your station location and make a backup. Nothing more than filling out a form, your name, address, etc., It's real simple. TQSL will even offer to send your certificate. After you get your TQ6 response, is a simple mouse click. Because the 5 and 6 are matched, you must use the same computer that you requested. Can you use this on one computer? Absolutely not. Using the back and restore facilities, it can be transferred to other computers, but you have to do it from the original computer. I've done it. I have it on 3 different computers for safety, and I use a thumb drive. Okay, I use a logging program like N4FN, Ham Radio Deluxe, or DX Lab. How does that work? You go to your logging application and see how to use their product with LOTW. If anybody needs help with Ham Radio Deluxe, I am a beta tester, and you can just drop me a note and I'll be happy to assist you. I'm not tech support, but I can do a lot of things, but they have excellent tech support. Okay, just a recap. LOTW only accepts trusted files. TQSL is the software that creates the files. The TQ8 is the file that you will upload to LOTW. TQSL creates that file. Okay, here's what's in a Tq8 file. If your information is ADIF or Cabrillo, Cabrillo is normally used by the contesters. You're going to have the call sign of the station, the date, time, band, and mode. It doesn't care about the operator's name or anything else. ADIF stands for Amateur Data Interchange Format, and that is the standard format. Cabrillo is a different type of text format that's originally designed for contests. And if you print it out, it kind of resembles a physical logbook. It's different though. But those are the 2 formats that LOTW uses. Okay, when you open up TQSL to upload a file, it may tell you there's a new version available. And then you say, okay, and it downloads the latest version. It's pretty smart. Okay, here's what's in a Tq8 file. It's very much like a QSL card. Your call sign and your entity are embedded in the certificate. The information in your ADIF or Cabrillo file is the call sign of the station, date, time, band, mode. That's it. The geographic is managed in your station locations, which would be state, county, grid square, or Maidenhead locator, ITU, and CQ zones. Those are in your setup. Some logging applications can be configured to automatically sign, upload, and download in one seamless operation. Personally, I don't like that because I don't want to upload everything to LOTW. Most I do. Okay. Again, this is a little flow chart just showing you requested the call sign certificate and etc., how it goes, and etc. Okay, you have to have a certificate. So here's what you have. This password is one that you select. It's not the one that was on the postcard. That's only to set up the account. So what do you see? When you open it up, you're going to see windows like this. Call sign worked. You can do searches, most recent QSLs, most recent QSOs. You can do it by starting date, by mode, band, etc. You can even use a wildcard in here. For example, if you were looking for VK9 and you're not sure what the suffix is, you put in VK9 asterisk or question mark, and it will bring up any contacts with that prefix. Okay. This is what you see when you bring up your account. Where you see this, it means that that is confirmed in LOTW. Where you do not see this right here, LU8EX, 15 meters FT8, hasn't been confirmed, not at this time. All of these have been, where they're highlighted, have been confirmed. If you want to do a search, as I mentioned, you can put in Z6 asterisk, and it will bring up all of those contacts. Now, interestingly enough, Z60 Whiskey Whiskey, if you look at the date, it's not Kosovo. It hadn't become Kosovo until years later. So it ignores it. It says, hey, sorry, Charlie, no tuna. So you do that by that, and you say any call sign, because in my, I have several call signs, N4FN, KC4MJ, and my very original call sign, which was a WA4 call. Okay, you can look at LOTW and see all of these things. WAS, your Century Club, it even now does CQ, WPX Awards, and Work Goal Zone. You can do that in LOTW. They partnered with CQ. Okay, here we go. How do I get rid of this thing at the top here? Well, it doesn't matter, that's all right. All right, oops. Here we have sorted by the prefix. And you'll notice it says deleted, but I've got it confirmed. Abu Ale, it's deleted. Some of these, of course, were deleted many years ago. But where it says mixed and phone, it doesn't show a band. The reason is LOTW was not able to pick up contacts issued before LOTW existed. So you see a few of these in here that do not show the band contacts. Now I've sorted it by prefix, excuse me, by the actual alphabetically by country. And it will show, for example, Alaska. I've got it confirmed, mixed, phone, CW, RTTY. For whatever reason, the league has not changed RT RTTY to digital. It's the same. And the answer I get is when they do a rewrite, it's expensive to change that. Seems to me it's pretty easy to change it to digital. But then again, I'm not a programmer. I'll leave that to guys that are a lot smarter than I am. So you can see all of these have been confirmed. All right, you can also do a search by band, and you can say all credits. And these are all the entities or countries. I'm going to call them countries from now on. It's just easier than saying entities. And then you can do a search by that. Okay, this is what a TQSL certificate looks like. You see this little emblem in here that looks like a gold seal. That means the certificate has been issued. If you don't see that, you don't have a certificate. So if you look here, you see this? And here, certificate not issued. These are all issued where they have the little gold seal. Okay, one thing you can do is you can say, oh, what have I got pending that I can send in for an award? This is just an old one. And it says, okay, these are ready to go. I can submit for an endorsement. Typically, I don't do that until I have at least 15 or 20. It's just a lot easier to do.
You there?
Okay.
Hello?
This is what you will see when you want to sign a log and get ready to upload or go to the website. So here, AA6YQ, who is Dave, and he's the guy who writes what's it called? Drawing a mental block. He's got another popular logging program.
DX log.
Say again?
DX log.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Joel. I'm glad you woke up. I didn't mean to wake you up from your nap. And it's saying it's uploading to QSLs. And after you see this, it's uploaded. You can close that. Uh-oh, if you get this, it says, uh-oh, LOTW is smarter than you are. You've already uploaded this one and you don't want to send it again. Don't put in allow duplicates. There's no reason to do that. Just say exclude duplicates. It will ignore it. As of March the 8th, I guess, that is the number of records in the system. How many records result, how many users, how many certificates, and how many files have been processed. I have approximately 9,000 contacts in LOTW. Okay, LOTW is wonderful, but what do you do if you have some paper cards that you did not get confirmed in LOTW? Well, you can do what's now called an online DXCC application. And using this, you can select cards that you would like to have checked by a card checker and type that into a form, which you can save and can be retrieved at any time until you submit it. Once it's submitted, you can't make any changes in it. When that's finished, you'll print that list of cards, take the list to the cards and the cards in the exact order they are entered on the form. And the card checker will check it, note any changes, and send the forms to the league. So that's how that works. And then you don't have to send your cards, but you do have that option. If you want to send your cards to the league, to me, I don't like doing that because there's too much chance for loss. Okay. The card checker's job is no different than it was before, except it's just a lot easier, because before it had to be checked, had to be listed in a specific order. And that was because of how they had to do the key entry into the system. And now when it goes to the league, they open up that, see it's certified by the checker, and they can process it easily. The application will have rates that are a lot less than if you had sent it to headquarters. So again, the fees are lower and it's much easier. It's more accurate because there are no typographical errors unless you make it. And then there are no data entries because you put it into the system. It's fast. The processing is a lot faster. The old way could take forever and 9 weeks for it to get processed. So it's just really convenient. This is what an online DXCC application. So for example, here, I'm going to submit ON6VL, Vito Leo, that happens to be Vito's call, in Belgium. And it's for 160 meter contact. I put the date in, the mode CW, and Belgium. They don't care about signal reports. They're not interested in that. So you tell it save, and it saves. Then you'll have this form, and it says you're applying for this. You fill in all of this information, and the card checker will sign it with their call sign and date it, and they mail that with the other part of the form to the league, and that's how it gets entered. And this is what it would look like. And this is how you submit the cards. This is relatively new, the Online QSL Request Service, or OQRS, widely used by expeditions now. And it's popular, very popular. If you want a call sign, you can do a search in QlubLog, and you do not have to be a member or registered user of QlubLog, but it's a good idea. So if they have this DX station or expedition is using OQRS, there is a way to request a button. Now, it's going to cost if you actually want the card mailed to you. Some stations will allow bureau cards if they have a bureau. So there'll be a request. It makes it easy. And if you're a registered user, as I am, of QlubLog, and you've entered the information into QlubLog, you don't have to fill in the QSO details. You're just going to enter in the call sign, and QlubLog, who is written and sponsored by a fellow in England, he will go ahead and fill in that information from data they have. Okay, here we go. I'm looking for 7Q7 Romeo uniform and my call sign. And I say, okay, show me the contacts. Well, here we go. I've worked him on 20 CW FTA, 17 CW FTA, 15 FTA. And there, so I now will click here and I say request QSL card. And that puts up this real nice thing that shows where I have worked 7Q7RU. This is a later, because of, you can see the check marks means where I've worked them. So now I collect here, request QSL, and this is what pops up. Well, because I've already requested that, it says, okay, are you asking for it again? That's because I printed this out for the presentation. But it automatically filled in all of this information and matched it. Now, keep in mind that the LOTW will match plus or minus 30 minutes. This will only match plus or minus 15 minutes. It's a little bit more restrictive. And then you can ask for bureau cards, it says, for free. Not all expeditions will do that. So here you do, here's another one for EW8 whiskey, and filled in the information, And if you click here, they'll send the cards free by the Bureau. Okay, this is something funny from my friend Gary Henson, ZL2IFB. He's on a campaign against this 599 or 59, and he says, okay, R9 is, I'm getting everything, including every breath that you're making. And R7, yeah, not too bad. If you're R4, you're distinctly challenging. R3 is seriously challenging. R2 is ESP level. And he said, are you sure that that report is 5.9? He's got a great sense of humor. If you get a chance, go to his website, ZL2IFB. It's a lot of fun. Okay, he has written 3 wonderful user guides: LOTW New User Guide, an FT8 Operating Guide, the Morse Code Proficiency. You'll find these under his British call, g4ifb.com. He said he's just too lazy to move them over to the New Zealand. He now lives in New Zealand on what the Kiwis call a block farm. He's kind of like a gentleman farmer, really smart guy and a nice guy. And Gary and I chat a lot. Okay, just to give a little bit of personal business. These are signs I have in the shack. This is what my station looked like. I call this pre-Paul Kelly and Scott Kelly. And you can imagine it was a bloody nightmare to get behind and make any connections or changes. Not easy. So I decided to do something about it. I had seen the station that my old friend Johnny Beckman, W4BTX, had, and it was, I think, the first one that Paul Kelly and his son Scott did. And I talked to them. They did a drawing, and when I moved everything out, this is what was behind. So you can imagine this is a mess. It's actually gotten worse. I called out the rat. And that's a spoof. That's really not me, but I just figured I'd have some fun. This is what the station looks like now. It's a lot neater. And when it was first done, what Paul did was he sent me a large cardboard piece of the riser, the top section, with little strips of scrap wood, so I could position the shelving the way I wanted it. And it worked out extremely well. And I did everything, and it enabled me to make changes later on as the station evolved. But here we have the dual band 2.70 centimeter, my EQ stuff from Julius Jones. This is no longer there. This is a coax switch that will turn the antennas to different radios. Palstar dummy load, Palstar HF auto. This is the antenna switch. We'll switch the 4 antennas that I have. And this will switch my Shure Morse key to either the Yaesu 5000 or the K3S. And that's a K2, the rotor control. And that is Larry Phipps' station monitor unit, which is quite nice. And that's the step IR controller for the big IR. I have a vertical that I use for 30, 40, 80. The hex beam covers 10 through 20. And when I need it, That's an Elecraft KPA 1500, a really nice unit. This was an addition to the desk because I keep my books. And if somebody's got a sharp eye, they'll look at that and know that that says Chardonnay in Morse code. And there actually was a winery in Australia called Morse Code Winery. And obviously this has been disposed of. The wine is gone to a good use. And they had this, and they had another one, Shiraz. I only got the one Chardonnay, and unfortunately, they don't produce it anymore. So this is the other part of the station. By the way, that's where I print my labels. And I use a 4-monitor setup. This is not a replica of the Geochron. That's a Geochron 4K. This is PSK Reporter. And this is the remote for the station monitor. And this is the control. I know it's hard to see, for the amplifier. And of course, there is Ham Radio Deluxe, the logbook on top, the cluster underneath, and digital here. A little bit better view. Okay, this is the back wall. And when Paul and Scott designed this, they left about 30 inches behind. And I said, well, can you change it to 36? And they said, no big deal, it's easy. And this is how I get to the back. And as you can imagine, not having access to all of this wiring would have been a challenge. That's a nice way of putting it. It would have driven me insane. By the way, that's the power unit, the power supply for the KPA 1500. It uses a separate supply, and I have a printer. And back down here is a UPS in the event we get a power glitch. So in normal use, this was a design of Paul Kelly's. It's really smart. It drops down and the back is painted black, so you don't see through it. You don't have to look at you don't have to see the wires. Brief story, when I was first getting interested in ham radio, a gentleman down the street, I don't remember his last name, we called him Mr. Morris. He had a Hamlin HQ 170. And I said, yeah, one of these days I'm going to own one. This was like 1957. I was out of University of Georgia a year, making $4,000 a year. This thing was like $400. Definitely not in the budget. But I said, someday I'm going to own one. And I found it some years ago, about 5 years ago, at Dayton. And the usual thing, is it working? Because there's no way in the flea market. And I got the usual, well, it was when the last time I turned it on. So I got it home, and Mac W4AX, who's a wizard, took a look inside, says, well, first thing we have to do is we have to get the squirrel nests out of inside and replace a few things. And it is working. It works beautifully. There's an interesting thing about Hammerlin speakers. Mr. Hammerlin had one lady who did the speaker grills. Every single Hammerlin speaker grill is different because she had like a ink thing, and she would take it and she'd squiggle it around, make a design, and that was how the grills were done. That is the HQ50, which is kind of rare. It's the companion transmitter to the HQ 170A. And that's a 145 that I picked up just for the heck of it. So my parting comment, please do not, if anybody wants this, drop me a note. I'll be very happy to send you a copy of it. I have one posted. Originally, it said, or PO, because we have ladies present, I won't say that. The operator, so I made it good for family consumption. And you can reach me, N4FN, at ARRL.net. And I appreciate my thanks to the ARRL, Gary Hinson, and my wife, Dr. Nancy Foster, who says I am guilty of writing the world's longest run-on sentence. I start with the first letter and everything ends with a period at the end. So she's the proofreader. Any information that's wrong is my responsibility. Any grammar corrections, blame on Nancy. This is a takeoff. Old guys like Joe Levine will remember this. This was a takeoff from World War II, literally, where during World War II, they had a green poster, not red, with the crown, and the original poster said, "Keep calm and carry on." And I have this one said, "Keep calm, stay home, get on the radio." And for fun, because my wife's quite a lady, Joel knows her quite well, she has one hanging in her dressing room that says, "Keep calm and wear pearls." And that's it, boys and girls.
Boy, that would have been real, that motto is really apparent now if during this COVID crisis, if we just had us a really good set of sunspot cycles, but things are still happening as it sounds like. Is there any questions for all that to Neil?
What are sunspots? Do we have these anymore?
Yeah, they're kind of like age spots.
Oh.
As a reminder, if you do have a question, please unmute your microphone.
I have a question for him. I've got these.
No.
I've got these IRCs, Neil. Are you ready to buy them?
You can put them in your scrapbook because not only are they useless, but they're the old style and they won't redeem them. So what can I tell you? I feel badly for you.
Well, I'll tell you what, Neil, I sure do appreciate it. I took a little break in the early 2000s from ham radio, and just long enough for all the QSL digital to come about, and that was really quite confusing. I was always just set up and used cards and exchanged those, but boy, I was overwhelmed with the many different ways of doing it. So I had a question: if you come back and you have a contact that's rejected, I guess, what do? You just hang it up and say, well, I'll just have to try to get them again?
No, if you have one that's not correct, you can start playing. Now, the first thing to do is, if it's a de-expedition, we'll just use that as an example, check your date. That's the first thing that people screw up because they forget about Zulu time. And all logging is done in Zulu or Greenwich Mean Time. And so you could be totally a day off. I think I mentioned, I found that quite common when I was doing the de-expedition for PA3 CXC, John Fung Loy from ST0. And, I had the time. So I would look at a day or so either side of the date, and invariably I'd find somebody had the wrong date, or somebody had put in their local time and not Greenwich time. So that's the first thing. And if your timing was off, I'm really finicky about timing. And I use a program called Mindberg, which synchronizes my computer with the cesium standard clock in Fort Collins, Colorado. If it's wherever it is now, maybe it's in Boulder, they moved it, I think. But normally I am within 1/100th of a second of being spot on. And that's critical, especially for digital modes like FT8. So what I would do, and what I frankly have done in the past, is if it were in, say, in Club Log, I would change the time and resubmit and keep doing it until you get a match. Because if you know that you had a good contact, okay, there's no question about it, but if not getting a match, it's either date or time.
Right.
The other option is if you write to the QSL manager, whoever it is, and if he or she can do a search of the log, and come up with a match. I've done that a few times where I've had a mistake in logging. So,
are there any other questions from the group for Neil?
Actually, I've got one.
Go ahead.
When you're looking in Club Log, can you actually search to see if your call sign is showing up in any DXpedition logs, or does it provide that interface? You have to look at one DXpedition at a time rather than looking at all of them.
What you need to do is you must specify the log you want to search. For example, if you wanted to search the log for VK0IR, which was Herd Island, I'm just using that as an example, you have to put that in. And then it will come back and tell you if you have a contact. But if you don't have it entered in Club Log, then you need to put the information in to get a QSL card. And that's where you have to have good information, because if it's within plus or minus 15 minutes, you're okay. If it's beyond that, you got a problem. So yes, you can search an expedition to see if you have a contact. And also, a lot of expeditions today are doing online, virtually instantaneous. If you make a contact, it's going to pop up in their log, and you can look at their log and see if you've got a good contact.